Hello everyone, I am Amber Noor Mustafa. I am a Fulbright doctoral candidate at Florida State University. I'm also founder of the think tank Naksh EduVision Solutions and co-founder of Sharfe Hayat Trust. The World Conference on Education for All declared that teachers' role is integral to the provision of quality education. The Dakar Framework of Action for Education for All also pledged to enhance the status, morale, and professionalism of teachers. The global normative framework recognizes the importance of teacher unions, but primarily with a focus on public schools, which are expected to drive education for all and other global and local projects. This sidelines the role that private schools and private school teachers play in the world today. My paper is going to unearth the unheard voices of private school teachers in Pakistan. Now, zooming in on the stratification of the education sector, we see that we have public schools, then there are high-cost private schools, then there are low and medium-cost private schools. There are also madrasas, which are actually the religious schools. There is a provision for non-formal education, and then finally, there are some NGO-run schools as well. The high-cost private schools, they cater to the elite and their language of instruction is English, while all other schools mostly use Urdu in their as their medium of instruction. The most impoverished generally go to madrasas because these madrasas, they provide free food and accommodation to children who stay with them. Then the lack of a robust education system since 1947, which was independence of Pakistan, and then denationalization of private education in 1979 resulted in the disproportionate growth of private schools, and from 3,300 in 1983 to more than 200,000 currently all over Pakistan. Then, with the consistent deterioration of public education over the years, we see that parents' trust in private schools has given strength to this sector, and there has been a mushroom growth of schools. So, with this mushroom growth, we also see that globally and in Pakistan also, there is an increasingly capitalist approach to education, of course, because education has moved to the private sector, especially with the increased emphasis on standardized testing worldwide and then globalization of education. The burden on these teachers seems to have increased manifold. Expectations and from teachers are very high, and accountability criteria have become more stringent than ever before. Parents seem to have the autonomy to question teachers, and we see more of this after COVID, because the lines between their personal and professional lives have really become blurred, and the management of schools is part of this process. Also, teachers have the added responsibility of mitigating gender-based socioeconomic racial discrimination, while also, trying to cover the academic gaps in academic performance of children. And also, they seem to be responsible for eliminating poverty, disease, social justice, intolerance. Of course, that's a lot to ask from private school teachers. But for what? So if you compare it to the context in which they work, we see that they get very meager salaries, the unrealistic goals and expectations from them. There is inadequate supply of resources and very limited professional development opportunities. There is a lack of support from management and a disconnect between policy implementers and policy makers. Finally, we also see gender discrimination, workplace harassment, there is no job security. And so this is the context in which these private school teachers work. Looking at the problem statement for this research, the paper focuses on private school teachers in one province of Pakistan, which is Punjab. And we see that despite the harsh conditions, which I have mentioned before, there is no law which really safeguards rights of teachers in the country. And so the National Education Policy says the teacher is considered the most crucial factor in implementing all education reforms at the grassroots level, but you don't really find that in the legislation in the country. Then over the years, these teachers, they seem to have emerged in small self-reliant groups to advocate for their rights and status in society, but mostly in vain. Also, you see more attempts are in the public sector, and you have strong unions to support them and stand by them, but no substantial evidence of collective efforts by private school teachers, even though 51% of teachers are employed in the private sector. And so the sparse information that was available through an analysis of policy documents and literature and digital media, it shows that Punjab has a Punjab Teachers Union for public teachers. It is the only registered teachers union. They seem to be very influential in voicing the narrative of public teachers. Against this context, we also see that even though we have one of the lowest education budget allocations, these teachers in the public sector, they are better paid than the private sector. Public teachers have more benefits, job security, regular salary increments and promotions as compared to private teachers. And so you see the second image is the only information I could find of a group of private teachers. And you can see that this also has about 3,000 members only. So the questions of my research are: how do private school teachers in Punjab, Pakistan perceive avenues of advocacy for day-to-day experiences in their workplace? How do these teachers employ and negotiate different resources, relationships, and options to voice their grievances and navigate these challenges? And finally, what institutional insights and practices are revealed through these experiences of these teachers? I use a critical narrative analysis framework by Soto Manning. Soto Manning proposes that when individuals make sense of their experiences through narratives, they depict not only the micro perspective, but also the macro perspective, or the social and the institutional perspective, since the two are inseparable. The aim of this research is therefore to analyze personal experiences of private school teachers, to interpret meanings of these experiences, and unravel realities of larger institutional phenomena. I approached this research as an educationist who has been in the private school sector for since 2002. And so I joined as a teacher, then I became a school head and a trainer. Then in 2020, when I started my PhD program, I was a policy maker as well as an implementer of these policies, as I was also evaluating these policies. And now I am studying education in an international context. And all this time, I've also always been a full-time mother and a wife. And so I have a wide range of experience as well as perspectives when in the field of education generally and private education in Pakistan specifically. The sample consists of 7 private school teachers. 2 of these teachers are still working as teachers in private schools. 4 are in leadership roles now, and 1 has quit the education fraternity completely because of a very, very bad experience during COVID, where, her personal and professional lives were really, at stake because of her experience with parents and management. And but I also must say that all these 7 teachers have worked in a variety of elite private schools. So it's not just that they've worked in any one specific school. So we have a wide range of experiences. The site for this research are elite private schools in Punjab, and selection was done through snowballing. And I must mention here, their induction of participants was also a major challenge because despite their situation and their condition, the teachers are very scared and worried and apprehensive to become a part of this work. So only those who knew me and trusted me were ready to talk and share their experiences with me. So collectively, if I look at the 7 teachers, then I have a collective experience of about 120 years. Data was collected through in-depth semi-structured interviews, and manual iterative coding was then put into process to dig out all the themes in their interviews. If let's start from the first research question: how do private school teachers in the province perceive avenues of advocacy? And I want to start with this quote by one of the participants. They say they want people who think out of the box, but they're not prepared to accept their out of the box thinking. So that was the mindset, and that was generally the inclination of all the participants who were talking to me. And so they were not really, happy with the kind of environment that was provided to them in their private schools. So keeping this mindset and this approach in our minds, the common perceptions of these participants were that expectations have become unreasonable post COVID-19. Then their administration and management generally has a very business-oriented approach, and so at times you even see more focus on physical appearance of teachers than their intellectual abilities. Then well-being of staff is not a priority, is also a perception that was widely, identified in all the interviews. Respect and remunerations are not appropriate. Human resource department, whenever it is approached with a problem, they seem to, seem to support management and not really these employees. And so they found that the HR department was not on their side. And so also they said that autonomy to express, to work, and be comfortable in sharing their opinions, it really depended on the line manager and not really on the organizational policies and dynamics. Looking at the second research question: how do these teachers employ and negotiate different resources, relationships, and options to voice their grievances and navigate these challenges? And so against this, I found that most of these teachers, they need jobs for themselves and for their children. So just quitting is not everybody's option. So whenever they are in a situation which is uncomfortable or where they feel their rights have been violated, they first go into a mode of self-reflection and self-challenge. After that, they keep trying to talk to some people and find some safe spaces. They could be their peers, it could be their school head, if they feel safe in talking about them. They also observe others and learn from them to see how they are coping with similar situations. Sometimes some of them do stand up for their rights. And for example, one participant said that I was the movement. And by that, she meant that she stood up for herself and against her line manager, who she believed had established a very political environment in the staff room, in their school. And even though she could not retain her job eventually, the environment did change, and it did change for everybody else after that. So in another situation, some teachers in another participant shared that they went on a strike. They sat outside the classroom for some days because their increments were not given that year. But they actually had to give in eventually, because the school head said that she did not have the authority to do anything about it, and also they were worried that they might lose their jobs eventually. Then if the situation becomes really bad, another coping strategy is that some of them, they try to change their job and go to a different job. Finally, if nothing works, then they are left with no option but just go into compliance mode and try to follow the will and wishes of their line manager. This is a quote from one of the participants, who said that after a while I understood what kind of work she, which was a line manager, wanted, and started aligning my work with it, even if I did not agree with her approach. But at least she was happy with me. So this is your compliance mode. Finally, this is the third question of my research, which is what are the institutional insights and practices? And so It was very strange, but out of the 7 teachers, only one had come to the profession by choice. All others had actually accidentally joined it. They needed a job, they were sitting at home, didn't have much to do, or they needed, somebody just encouraged them to participate and just decided to stay there. And then, secondly, the current organizational dynamics are not conducive for any advocacy platform. So, in the current situation, it would be no use. Then, something which came out of all the interviews was that the role of leadership, especially your line manager, is crucial in creating an environment where people feel safe to make mistakes, to stand up for their rights, to talk about their problems. And but when they don't find that kind of an environment, then you generally see that there is no will for a collective effort. And that was something which was very alarming for me, that despite the fact that all of them agreed that their rights were being violated many times, and they needed some support and somebody, some change in their situation, there was no will for a collective effort, and everybody seemed to be trying for their own situation and how to improve it. And even when they talked about their peers and colleagues, it was always about an individual effort and not about a collective effort. And therefore, there was a lot of frustration and self-doubt. And a major factor of that was the trust that was lacking. When you don't trust your peers, that they'll go and talk to the line manager if you share something with them. If you don't trust your line manager, that your job is safe. So if that is a problem, then there is frustration, and then you don't come together to do anything about your situation. So my analysis of this situation is that I found a gap between the people who make policies and those who implement them, or people for whom those policies are made. So there is a major disconnect between policy formulation. Then you also see a lack of awareness about different policies regarding their rights in these organizations. So even if an organization does have some policies, teachers are not aware. Finally, so there is a gap between awareness and implementation. What is being implemented is sometimes half-baked or not really benefiting these people. So finally, what are the recommendations that I have, that I hope can improve the situation? The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house, right? So that's what Audre Lorde says. And so private school institutions, trying to think that they are going to come forward and do something about it might just be a little far-fetched. So my recommendation is that government initiated endeavors and platforms to support private school teachers could be a solution to help these teachers. Then Mills et al. And Aslam, they advocate for research-based environment in schools. So if there are multiple sources are employed to collect data like ethnographies, interviews, focus groups, and provide different avenues for conversations, that could also be very helpful for these teachers. Then Naheed emphasizes that it is important to safeguard the psychosocial and emotional well-being of teachers. That is only possible if we work on the overall culture and provide job security to teachers. Campbell et al., they talk about the concept of providing opportunities to teachers to exercise their leadership skills and abilities. You don't always have to give them a name or a title, but teacher leadership is crucial, and all policies must include these teachers. So a bottom-up approach is very much the need of the hour. And finally, professional development of leaders. Of course, you cannot emphasize that enough. There is a need to reconceptualize leadership at the school level, then investigate the specific conditions and professional needs of these principals, so that they can create an environment of trust and collaboration, which will eventually create a conducive learning environment beneficial for students' growth and excellence. Andy Hargreaves says, a world without teachers is also a place where children have no way to learn how to express their own ideas and listen to others, to take their turn, and to value differences. I think our teachers also need the same kind of environment. So when they experience professional and personal well being, they will also be able to provide the same to our students. Thank you so much for your attention and for watching. I hope to connect with you, and also I look forward to your questions. Thank you.